Alright guys, what's up? So, picked this bike up for my son. Got it from my buddy for a pretty good deal. He didn't know what was going on. He just knew that the throttle cable snapped. And I think he tried to do some repairs to it. So, when I started really diving into it, I saw that the throttle cable was in fact gone. And he had another throttle cable that he ended up giving to me. That he had purchased online. And just like anybody, just like myself, I purchased a lot of stuff on Amazon, whatever. But this is the carb. It's a mini key, just like all the other brands, cheap, whatever. And I'm sure it works. I have aftermarket carburetors for my Honda 50 with the 88 kit, and they work great. So this one slide is totally seized up in there, so I had to buy a new carb and some new throttle cables. So excuse my mess here, but anyway, I gotta get all this stuff ready for the desert next weekend, and I don't know if it's going to happen. So what I did was I went to RockyMountainATV.com. I've purchased a lot of stuff from them in the past, and they're usually pretty good. So I bought this carburetor right here. Again, excuse my mess. I got crap everywhere. And this is QA parts, made by QA parts, and this is the carburetor that they sell for the PW50s. And I don't think there's any difference in the year because I put in every year imaginable for the PW50 for the last 30 years, and it all pulls up with this part number. And the one thing I have noticed when I go on other websites is there's two different part numbers for the throttle cable. Now here's the throttle cable that my buddy had provided me, and here's the old top cap to the carburetor, the mini key carb, and I have the slide on there because I was test fitting this. And the reason why I was test fitting this and seeing the difference is because this elbow on top of this carb top for the mini key is actually shorter than the QA parts. Here's the QA parts one, and you see I have everything taped and I have the nuts right there. What I am forced to do now, I've been in contact with Rocky Mountain ATV, and they said they verified with a Motion Pro cable, which is this guy right here, and they said it fits, everything works fine. But in my situation, it doesn't, and I don't know why. I have no idea why. All I know is this old carburetor top is shorter, the elbow is shorter. These should be the same size. I confirmed with Motion Pro that the only difference between the two part numbers for the difference in years, because I have a 2003 when they switched over to a slightly different throttle cable, has nothing to do with the free length. They did their measurements, they looked at their drawings. It's exactly the same free length. The only difference you have is on the new part number, you're going to have the cable cap, or whatever you want to call it. It's actually stuck on the cable, crimped on there, so you have a positive engagement on your elbow right here. So basically when you screw this down and it's crimped on the cable, you can't pull it. And so if something gets lodged in your kid's bike and wants to twist and then pull it full throttle, your kid is safe. It won't pull this out. That is literally the only difference that they told me between the two cables. So the emails I'm going back and forth with Rocky Mountain ATVs, they're saying that it should be fine, this and that. It's not. And I verified that. I had installed this cable. Either one of these cables they're the same size. This other aftermarket one, which I'm not sure the brand, and this Motion Pro, exact same lengths coming out of the sheathing. So I don't see why, where the carb or whatever will be an issue. The issue, I'm sorry, the cables would be an issue. It's the carburetor that's an issue. And so another thing that happened with this is I installed on the bike. I thought I had everything good, and when I installed the slide on this other top cap, it was so tight. I mean, it was pressed up against here, and it was all hanging off on a 90-degree angle. Same thing with the choke plunger. It was so tight in there. It was ridiculous, and it was all hanging off to the side. There's no possible way it would even get down anywhere close to the bottom inside of those the choke valley, and then the slide valley right there, or whatever you want to call them. So, and I did everything. I loosened this idle screw down all the way. Installing any one of these cables with this carb top, with these elbows, it will be like, the thing is like almost full throttle. It's the bottom of the slide is way the heck up in there. So Going back and forth with Rocky Mountain ATV, it doesn't seem like they're gonna do anything as far as trying to send me a replacement. Maybe this was a flawed piece, and I'm not gonna sit around and wait. I can't just sit around and wait for a company. And mind you, this thing is $18. If that was me, I would have just sent the customer a new one, but whatever. And also, I mean, I can just purchase another one. They're not too expensive, but it's the principalities, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my Dremel. I would use like a hacksaw or something, but it'd take too long. And the Dremel's nice and small. And I just put that cutoff disc on there, and I'll just and I have the nuts on there as far as it telling me where to cut. So it's giving me kind of like my mark, and it's also going to keep my disc straight, so I get a nice straight cut. And the cool thing is I have the nut already on there, and then when I spin it off, it will chase the threads and anything that got kind of mashed up with the threading. It will straighten it out with those nuts, and then I should be good to go. So, well, for the most part, I'll be good to go on my lengths. The question is will this carb actually work and perform? I don't know. So I have a lot of other stuff to do to my razor. As you can see, the hood's open and all of that stuff. Hooking up some wires back there for my whips, because I can't just hook them straight up to power. You know, I have this control module because it does all the functions. I had to have the fancy one, I guess. So that's a pain in the butt back there. And then I also have to do my switches. I have to add a couple more switches. So I have my light bar one over there. I'm going to add a flag one so I can cut power to my module so no one can mess with my, they have these remotes. And then I'm not adding anything over here quite yet. I was going to put my pods on the corners here, but that's not going to happen yet. But I do need to hook up my dome light, and I have a little push button switch that I'm going to put down on my center console for that. But anyway, the whole purpose of this video was this bike. These things are way harder to work on than any other bike, because you have two pieces coming off that cable, and one cable is going to go down there to your oil pump, and the other one's going to come down to your carb. And this is what I'm talking about, is these two cables right here. So here's one cable, and you can see this little tube thing right here. There's a little plunger thing in there, and two cables kind of hooking it. It looks similar to like what you hook in your slide, and then you hook in there, and then that one cable pulls that plunger, and then we'll pull both of these cables simultaneously. And of course, you have your oil adjustment right here. And I think it's funny that they add this oil adjustment type of thing here. They didn't put anything for the actual slide adjustment. That would make sense, because even with these cap things, and you have this somewhat of adjustment right here, it would help in my situation if I can collapse an adjustment all the way down, and then I wouldn't have to cut these. But again, this is only $18 for this carb. If I screw it up, then I screw it up. If it doesn't work, even I get all my lengths right and everything, and it still doesn't work, then I just go buy an OEM carb. This is just kind of one of those things where I wanted to be on the cheap and hurry up and get this bike running, but it turns out it's a way more of a pain in the butt than I expected. So just beware. If you have a Yamaha PW50 and you want to get something like that, just beware, you might have to make some modifications. If you look on their website too, it says some of the reviews are exactly that. Wrong lengths, wrong sizes, missing parts. You get what you pay for. If I were to get the actual OEM carb from Japan, I wouldn't be dealing with this right now, and this thing would be running. It would, my kid would probably be riding it right now. But that's the situation I'm in, and I hope that this kind of helps someone. There's a lot of PW50 videos out there, but nothing that gets really too in-depth with the carburetor itself. Just kind of like, oh, how I run my wire or my cables and everything like that. Well, the cabling is self-explanatory. All you gotta do is take it apart. This is where the stuff gets tricky, is this stuff. And no one likes messing with carburetors. It's just one of those things. Trying to tune carbs is kind of one of those special arts, and try to find your balance of your air fuel mixture and stuff like that, and well, not your idle screw, but also your float bowl, because I used to bend a little tabby down there so it'll cut off fuel faster, so you're not flooding. All those little things like that with these aftermarket carbs, you have to play with them. You have to kind of know what you're doing. So once I cut these, I will put the cap on, I will put my cables in, And I'm hoping that this follow-up video to this one will be something in running. But before I get it running, I will install it and I will show you the action of this slide inside of the carb itself, and after I cut, and just how much I have to play with. This is still leaving me adjustments. Even though I'm cutting this, there's still some threads behind here. So I have just a little bit more adjustment to go if I needed to loosen it up, or even you know, kind of tighten it up, because these guys right here will allow me to unscrew just a little bit, you know, off of this, and then give me just a little bit more play. And that's really all I can do here. I know cables stretch, and that's kind of what Rocky Mountain ATV told me, but it's, I mean, how much is this really going to stretch? It's not that tight. So again, hopefully the next video will be this thing installed on the bike and getting ready to try to start it. So anyway, that's all I got for this. I'm hoping that it might help someone if someone's in the same situation. And let me know if you've run into this, and tips and tricks for me. All right, later.